Move it now before he wakes up. That was the first sentence I saw after brain surgery, not from a nurse, not from a doctor, from my dad in a text to my mom. My eyes were barely open. The room was split into pieces, white ceiling, beeping machine, plastic tube near my hand, my mother's fingers wrapped around mine like she was trying to hold me in place. My phone lit up on the rolling table beside my bed, fraud alert, transfer completed. $28,000 to Ryan Cindy joint checking. I tried to lift my hand, but my body felt buried under wet cement. My mother leaned close and whispered, "Don't upset yourself, Tera. Money can be fixed, family can't." My father turned away from the window and lowered his voice into his phone. Then Nurse Elena looked at my screen, her face changed. She didn't ask my parents a single question. She stepped between them and my bed, picked up the room phone and said, "He's awake, you need to come now." That was when I realized someone had been waiting for this to happen. The pressure around my head felt like a metal band. Every blink took effort. My throat was so dry that when I tried to speak, only a broken rasp came out. Mom squeezed my hand harder. She said, "The surgery went well, that's what matters." But she wasn't looking at my face, she was looking at my phone. 6 years of my life were inside that account. Double shifts at the pharmacy. Tax refunds I never touched. The money from selling my car because I knew recovery would mean rent, medication, rides, and months where I couldn't work. $28,000 gone while I was unconscious. And the worst part was they had asked before. A week before surgery, Dad stood in my kitchen and said, "Ryan just needs a little stability. Put him on the account temporarily." I told him no. Mom cried then too, not like today. That day her tears were loud and sharp, designed to make me feel cruel. Today they were quiet, careful. Dad shoved his phone into his pocket and came to my bedside. "She's confused," he told Nurse Elena. "She's coming out of anesthesia. We're her parents. We handle her decisions." Elena's voice stayed calm. "I need you both to wait outside." Mom's grip tightened again. "I'm not leaving my daughter." Stepped closer. "We're her legal decision makers." Phone on the table lit up again. This time the text preview from Dad to Mom was still visible. "Move it now before he wakes up." I didn't know who he meant. A bank employee, a fraud specialist. Someone else. Before I could understand it, the door opened. A man in a charcoal suit walked into my hospital room carrying a sealed folder. He didn't look surprised to see my parents standing there. He looked ready. He glanced at Nurse Elena, then at me, then past my parents like they were already in his way. I'm from the... Stop, my father moved so fast the word cut through the room before the man could finish. He planted himself between the suit and my bed. "Whatever this is, she can't consent right now." My mother's face changed first. 1 second, she was the crying mother at her daughter's bedside. The next, her mouth went flat, and her eyes locked on the sealed folder like it was a weapon. The man didn't raise his voice. "Nurse Elena, has Ms. Cindy been declared medically responsive?" Elena checked the chart clipped near my bed. Limited speech, responsive to commands, oriented enough for yes or no confirmation. Dad scoffed. "She just had brain surgery." "And she is still the patient," Elena said. For the first time since I woke up, someone said that like it mattered. The man stepped where I could see him. "Tera, my name is Mr. Vale. I'm going to ask simple questions. Blink once for yes, twice for no. Do you understand?" I blinked once. Mom leaned over me. "Honey, don't strain yourself." Mr. Vale didn't look at her. "Did you authorize a transfer of $28,000 to Ryan Cindy?" My chest tightened. I blinked twice. Mom snapped. "She doesn't understand the question." Mr. Vale continued. "Did you give your parents permission to access your banking app while you were in surgery?" I blinked twice again. Dad's jaw flexed. "This is ridiculous. I know her passcode because I helped set up her medical portal. Her mother had the phone because doctors might call. That doesn't mean anything." But it did. It meant Mom had insisted on holding my phone the morning they wheeled me away. It meant Dad knew the code I had never changed because he kept saying, "What if there's an emergency?" It meant Ryan's text from the night before suddenly sounded less like whining and more like warning. "You won't even need money if Mom and Dad take care of you." My eyes burned, but I couldn't move my hands enough to wipe them. Then I remembered Grandpa Harold sitting beside me 2 weeks earlier, his thumb pressed gently over my knuckles. "No one gets to turn your weakness into their opportunity," he had said. I thought he meant courage. Mr. Vale opened the sealed folder. Mom lunged forward. "Give me that." Elena stepped between them before Mom's hand reached the papers. Mr. Vale removed one document and held it where Dad could see the signature at the bottom. Then he said quietly, "Your grandfather was afraid this would happen." My father exploded into the hallway. "This hospital is letting some stranger manipulate my daughter while she's drugged," he shouted. "She can't even sit up." His voice carried past the nurses' station. 2 nurses turned. A charge nurse stepped out from behind the desk. My Aunt Denise, who had been sitting in the waiting area with a paper cup of tea, stood up slowly. Mom followed Dad out, wiping her cheeks like she had been attacked. "She promised she'd help Ryan," Mom told Aunt Denise. "Now they're confusing her after surgery. She doesn't know what she's saying." From my bed, I could see pieces of the hallway through the open door. Then Ryan walked in carrying coffee. He froze when he saw Mr. Vale. Not when he saw me. Not when he saw Mom crying. When he saw the man with the folder. Mr. Vale turned slightly. "Ryan, Cindy." Ryan swallowed. "Yeah. The account receiving the transfer is jointly held under your name." Ryan looked at Dad before answering. "I mean, yeah, but I didn't do anything." Nurse Elena picked up my phone from the table after asking me with her eyes. I blinked once. She read the bank alert again, then looked at Mr. Vale. The transfer was initiated from her device during the surgical window. Dad let out a harsh laugh from the doorway. "A phone doesn't prove who touched it." "No," Elena said, "but the charging station in the surgical waiting area is monitored. We had theft issues last year." The hallway went quiet. Mr. Vale looked to the charge nurse. "Please preserve visitor logs and camera footage." Ryan's face drained. Aunt Denise stepped closer to him. "Why did you tell me this morning your apartment deposit was handled?" Ryan's mouth opened, then closed. Mom snapped, "Denise, stay out of this." But Denise didn't move. Tera was still in surgery when he said it. Ryan stared at the floor. I just assumed she'd agree after. That one sentence shifted the room. The charge nurse looked at Mom differently. Aunt Denise stepped away from Ryan. Even Dad stopped talking for half a second. Then my phone rang. Elena answered on speaker after I blinked yes. "This is Northline Bank Fraud Prevention. We're calling to confirm whether Ms. Tera Cindy wishes to dispute a $28,000 transfer." Mom reached for the phone automatically. Elena caught her wrist in midair. Security appeared at the end of the hall. At the same moment, Ryan looked down at his own phone and whispered, "Why is my account frozen?" Ryan kept tapping his screen like the money might reappear if he hit refresh enough times. "It says restricted," he said, voice cracking. "Pending review. Dad, why does it say pending review?" From the hallway, my father's voice rose again. "I'll sue every person in this building. That nurse touched my wife. That lawyer has no right to be here." Inside the room, the machines kept beeping beside me like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. I forced air through my throat. Grandpa knew. Mr. Vale pulled a chair closer, careful not to block Elena's view of my monitors. "He suspected," he said. "Your grandfather noticed your mother asking too many questions about your savings. He noticed your father pushing you to add him to accounts. And he noticed Ryan suddenly talking about debts no one had heard about before." Ryan stared at him from the doorway. "That's not proof of anything." "No," Mr. Vale said, "but this is becoming proof." He placed his phone on the rolling table and sent the fraud notice while I watched. Elena gave a statement to the charge nurse. Hospital security began writing an incident report outside my door. Then Mr. Vale slid a single page toward me. "Tera, only if you're able. Initial here to confirm you did not authorize the transfer." My hand shook so badly Elena had to steady the clipboard. I marked my initials like they weighed more than my whole body. My phone buzzed again and again. Aunt Denise appeared at the door, holding her own phone. Marlene posted in the family chat that Tera being turned against us after surgery. Mom's voice came from behind her, "Because she is." Denise looked straight at Ryan. "Then why did you text your cousin 2 days ago? After tomorrow, I'll have the deposit handled." Ryan went silent. The betrayal was no longer just mine. It had screenshots, timestamps, witnesses. Then Dad returned with a hospital administrator beside him, walking like he had finally found someone important enough to overrule everyone. "I have legal authority," Dad said, pulling folded paperwork from his jacket. "Right here." The administrator looked at Mr. Vale. "Do you have documentation stating otherwise?" Mr. Vale opened the folder again and placed a newer document directly over my father's papers. Dad reached for it. Before he could read the first line, Mr. Vale said, "That document was revoked before she went under." My father's hand stopped above the paper. For the first time since I woke up, he did not have a sentence ready. Mr. Vale turned the document so the administrator could read it. 2 weeks before surgery, Tera Cindy revoked prior medical authorizations naming Frank and Marlene Cindy as decision-makers. She assigned an outside medical advocate and listed my office as the emergency legal contact if suspicious financial activity occurred while she was incapacitated. Mom whispered, "Tera, why would you do that to us?" I looked at her through the blur of pain medication and bandages, because Grandpa asked me one question. Mr. Vale nodded. Harold Cindy brought Tera to our office after he noticed pressure building around her accounts. He didn't accuse anyone. He asked her what would happen if she woke up and her savings were gone. I remembered laughing nervously in that office, my hands folded in my lap, telling Grandpa that sounded dramatic. He hadn't laughed with me. He had only said, "Then let's make dramatic impossible." Mr. Vale continued. She secured her accounts with additional alerts. She removed family access. She prepared limited emergency authorization allowing my firm to act if a transfer was attempted while she was unconscious. Elena lowered my phone onto the table. "That's why the bank alert didn't just go to her." "It came to us too," Mr. Vale said. "And when Nurse Elena saw the fraud alert and the message on the lock screen, she called the emergency number listed in Tera's updated hospital file." Everything clicked into place. The folder, the freeze, the timing, Grandpa's warning, Dad's panic when the newer document appeared. I turned my head just enough to face my mother. "You waited," I whispered, each word scraping out of my throat, "until they cut into my head." Mom started crying again, but this time the sound collapsed in the room. No one moved toward her. Dad pointed at Ryan. "It was temporary. We were going to put it back." Ryan looked up wild-eyed. "How? The deposit was due today and the car repairs, and I still owed Marcus $1,200. Silence landed harder than yelling. Mr. Vale closed the folder. "Thank you for clarifying intended use of the funds." Dad's face went grey. The bank reversed the transfer after confirming unauthorized access, and Ryan's account stayed frozen during the investigation. Hospital security barred my parents from my room unless I personally approved their visit. Mr. Vale filed the fraud report with the texts, visitor logs, camera footage from the waiting area, and Ryan's messages. Aunt Denise sent the proof to the family chat. Mom's post about me being manipulated disappeared within minutes, but the screenshots stayed. Relatives who had always told me to be patient with family stopped calling her back. Ryan lost the apartment when the deposit failed. Dad lost the authority he had used like a leash. Mom lost the one thing she protected more fiercely than money, the image of being the selfless mother at her sick daughter's bedside. 2 days later, Grandpa Harold came to see me. He walked in slowly with his cane, his face tired, his coat hanging loose on his shoulders. In his hand was a small envelope. "You scared me," he said. I tried to smile. "You saved me." He placed the envelope on my blanket. Inside was a new bank card. "Recovered funds are in an account only you can access," he said. "New passwords, new emergency contacts, new rules." That was when I cried. Not because I was scared. Because someone had protected me before I even knew how badly I needed it. I entered that operating room as the daughter everyone expected to manage, forgive, and fund. I left the hospital with my savings restored, my parents removed from my medical life, and a recovery plan they could not touch. A week later, I moved into a quiet recovery apartment arranged through Grandpa's attorney. I changed every password. I replaced every emergency contact. I started physical therapy with Elena's number saved in my phone and Grandpa's card on my fridge. My parents still tried to call. I let the lawyer answer. By the time I learned to walk steadily again, My parents had learned something too. Stealing from someone helpless does not make them weak when someone already made sure they could fight back.